Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Rings of Power is a disaster, and Access Media's usual collusion with the industry doesn't change that. Going back prior to Peter Jackson's 6 movies, no studio, no Tolkien scholar believed you could make an epic movie out of any of Tolkien's books or works or stories. Nobody believed it. There was some animation, there was some live action stuff, but never anything significant enough, no evidence to show that it could be done how Jackson later did it. And even let's look at Peter Jackson prior to the Lord of the Rings movies. His work wasn't overly impressive. I mean, The Frighteners was okay, but he hadn't done anything to say, oh yeah, if we give him hundreds of millions of dollars, he'll make like 6 epic, like Tolkien movies. No one believed this was possible. And any Tolkien scholar, any fan, any lover of the works of Tolkien will tell you these books, these stories were impossible to adapt on a level in live action to make them effective as a story. And Peter Jackson did that. How he did that, I don't know. You don't know. He's a very talented man, and he didn't work alone. But that was prior the apocalypse of 2016. Back in the days when people cared about making great entertainment and the culture was so different. Why did Amazon buy the rights to these stories? And I don't know if they've got all the rights, and apparently I think another company is getting the rights now. I don't know. I'm confused about that. Anyway, what was Amazon's motivation? Well, we all know the entertainment industry has been hijacked by the extreme left and extremists. And just like all our legacy characters and franchises and, iconic legacies have all been hijacked by the extremists. And the Lord of the Rings is no different. It was going to always happen with Lord of the Rings as well. It's happened to Star Wars, it's happened to DC. And I mean, to be fair, the DCEU isn't as woke as the others. Let's be honest about that. There's been a couple of movies, but mainly it hasn't been as bad. But look, all our franchises are being taken over by these extremists. So you look at like the Rings of Power and you think to yourself, why did they do a prequel? Maybe they would have got away with their extremism if they did something far in the future or after the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Something that can't be touched, something away from the books. Do something new. I mean, personally, I say after Jackson's 6 movies, unless Jackson was involved, then you shouldn't touch it. Because as I say, we all thought it was impossible to make those 6 movies, but Jackson did it. Now, they made an offer to Peter Jackson to come in. He said to them, I'd have to look at the scripts. It depends if they're any good. He never heard from them again. He was never going to hear from them again, no matter what his response was. They didn't want him involved because Peter's motivation, as we've seen from his 6 movies, is to adapt the works of Tolkien faithfully. And that is not their motivation. Their motivation is to take great legacies and remold them with their propaganda and extremism. And anything that's offensive to them, they cut out. Let's look at Galadriel. In the Peter Jackson movies, she's brilliant, very faithful to how Tolkien wrote her. Now, they're using her. They're using her as an analogy for something else. This is what they do. She's a woman, so they're going to take her and remold her. And I think we know who Sauron is the analogy for in Rings of Power. It, of course, is the right wing and Donald Trump. Now, you don't have to be a supporter or a hater of Trump to understand how stupid this is. We've seen this so many times where they take Donald Trump and make an analogy and an example of him in a film. Because extremist Hollywood are obsessed with this man. He's not even president anymore, and they're still obsessed with him, right? The point is, it's not about being a supporter or non-supporter of him. I don't want to see films about Donald Trump secretly wrapped up in another character. And this is what they're doing again. These people have no idea how to do a great adaptation. These people don't even have an original idea. Never mind adapting the works of Tolkien. Now, corrupt access media have told us this film looks stunning. And yes, the look of the series looks very well. It's been shot with the best cameras. If you can't make something look stunning today with the technology that they've got at their disposal, you really shouldn't be working in this industry, but you shouldn't be working in this industry anyway. So they had no intention of bringing Peter Jackson in. And you look at Amazon, and you look at Bezos. Anyone with any brains would have went directly to Peter Jackson and said, I need you to be involved. We've bought the rights to Lord of the Rings. Do what you want. Continue what you were doing. I don't care. Just do your thing. Now, surely an arrangement could have been struck with Jackson to take control, but they didn't do that. They gave the leadership of this franchise to a bunch of extremists. And look at what's happened. It's not really about the colour of the dwarves or this, that or the other, or strong female leads or whatever. Whatever fake representation and inclusion they're pushing. The point being here that it's another franchise that they're taking and reworking. What's funny about extremist Hollywood today and extremist entertainment? Every time they do this, a bunch of ordinary working class fans take them down with constructive criticism and facts. Now they retwist the narrative like Lucasfilm did with Reva and the Kenobi show when they had Ewan and the actress who played Reva in a car calling everyone out for being racist and saying we don't tolerate racism, blah, 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 blah. Bullshit. They were constructive criticisms, but you switched it around. That's what happens now. Every time us, the fans, come up with a constructive criticism, it's re-rolled around as racism and bigotry. But we know the truth, don't we? And the truth is we've got a bunch of creatively bankrupt people that have taken over this industry, that have taken it hostage, that are taking all our legacy characters hostage. And I can give you so many examples of this. What Hollywood have done with this kind of worldview of theirs, kind of imprinting their worldview on everything. You're making it impossible for us to consume your product. We can't. We're not going to waste our fresh air and our oxygen and the very little kind of time we've got left on this beautiful world to watch your shit. We already did it with Disney Star Wars, with Disney Marvel. It's done. And tomorrow, when the Rings of Power premieres, it's going to be very interesting. And of course, I expect Access Media and Amazon to overinflate the figures and the ratings for the opener of Rings of Power. Of course, they're going to do that. Of course, independently, there's ways YouTubers like myself can find out how many people are viewing these things. Now, remember what happened with the Snyder Cut. They de-inflated the figures. And they were trying to say Wonder Woman 84 had more views, blah, 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 blah. This is not true. I actually got to see the figures of the Snyder Cut. And basically, it was at the time the biggest streaming event of all time. Now, what they did was, because it was a 4-hour movie, obviously people have got lives, they've got jobs, they've got children, blah, blah, blah. Most people couldn't watch it in its entirety. It was a 4-hour movie. So they watched it in bits and pieces. So they manipulated the ratings to make them look bad. So they said lots of people stopped watching it. They didn't. They stopped and started. It's like when I put a DVD in, I stop, I go for dinner and I put it back on. That's it. Everyone was interested in this movie and captivated by this movie. Very successful. The DVD, Blu-rays and 4Ks were sold out. So Access Media will always draw you the picture that they want you to see. And as independent free thinkers and this tool of the internet we have for now, because, you know, be warned, they're going to retool the internet so they have control over it. We heard what Mark Ruffalo said about IMDb. We have to be stopped. Freedom of speech has to be stopped, because what Mark Ruffalo and Hollywood want and the rest of the entertainment industry, they want a kind of Russian kind of communist system where we all just say everything's great so they can keep on making money and pushing their extremism. That's the kind of world they want. But it's not the kind of world the consumer wants. We are at civil war with the entertainment industry, using the words entertainment loosely. Tomorrow is another huge day for Hollywood and for the fans, as Rings of Fire, or shall I say Rings of Power, is released on Amazon Prime. I won't be watching it. Some people will, some people won't. It'll be interesting, but I think we do have a Last Jedi moment. I think the fallout to this is bigger than The Last Jedi. The fallout to this is bigger than BVS. This is huge because this is based on the works of a scholar and an icon. And they want, because every piece of story that's written, even if it's based on a kind of fictional past, has got elements of the time we live in when we create the piece of art. What these new SJW extremist showrunners want to do, they want to bring it in the 21st century. The 21st century and the works of Tolkien don't go together. It's like trying to push a magnet together. It resists. And that's the whole point. It's supposed to be escapist. It's supposed to be in another world, another time, right? I mean, I'm surprised the characters in the Rings of Power don't have mobile phones, and they don't give the term Gen Z and things like that. I'm surprised, but I'm sure there's an analogy for all this bullshit and all the modern day extremist bullshit in this series. They have spent a lot of money on this series, and they're going to lose the money they invested and then some. This could be the end of Amazon Studios. And if this is what they're going to put together, they do deserve the bankruptcy and destruction and the criticism coming to them. This has been Movies TV Mad. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And I'll see you again in the next video. Until we see each other again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.